Hi guys, welcome back to another YouTube video. Today we're going to talk about what a lot of subscribers have asked me to do is the compressor efficiencies. How to read a compressor map, what is a compressor map, and how to plot on a compressor map based on your specific engine size, engine build, compression ratio, etc, etc. Let's get into it. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we need to understand that this is going to be mathematical. There's going to be formulas involved. You need to understand a little bit about your engine, because in order to get an accurate plot onto your compressor map, you need to make sure you understand all of the values and the specifications of your specific engine build. So this is the basic formula. We're going to use a rule of thumb. We're not going to split hairs. I know there's going to be guys out there that are going to throw comments, but you forgot about barometric pressure, and you forgot about humidity, and you forgot about this, and you forgot about that. We're not going to go and split hairs into every single little formula. We're going to keep it high level. So the guys that are interested in how to calculate these things and how to understand the compressor map can understand it without us losing them with 56 different formulas. So the first thing I'm going to do, unfortunately there are formulas. This is the basic gist of how you can plot a compressor map. So without using, sorry, I keep coming back to you guys, without using the BorgWarner bot, the match bot, or the Garrett boost advisor, if you want to make some small changes to whatever it is that you're building, which lands up changing the volumetric efficiency of your engine, you'll be able to work out based on these small formulas exactly where and how your compressor map plot will change. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to speak about brake specific fuel consumption times by cubic inch displacement, the size of your engine, times by volumetric efficiency, how efficient your specific engine is, times by the RPM at which you want to plot, you want to calculate the actual engine consumption, airflow consumption that you want to then take back to your compressor map, divided by 1728. The result is going to give you cubic feet per minute. Now let me explain this formula before we carry on. First of all, brake specific fuel consumption we're going to use is 0.55. This is a topic all by itself. I'm not going to go into that in this video. It's highly technical. Cubic inch displacement, the size of your engine. So conservatively, or should I say rule of thumb, for every 60 cubes or 60.9 cubes plus minus, you get 1 liter or 1,000 cc's. So we're going to use a specific engine today, which is called a VW ABF. It's a 2 liter, 16 valve, normally aspirated engine, which you found in the Golf Mark II 16 valve. You've got an 1800 and a 2 liter version. We're going to go with a 2 liter. So that is a cubic inch displacement of 121.9 cubic inches. If you go and download a VE calculator, a volumetric efficiency calculator, you will work out that this engine produces 110 kilowatts at 6,000 RPM. These are the manufacturer's specifications, and that relates to a volumetric efficiency of 90.5 or 90.56. Remember, I said we're not going to split hairs. Let's leave it high level. And let's say, for example, we are building a top-end car. We want to build a car for a 1,000-meter sprint. Where are you going to spend all of your RPM, or all of your time in your RPM range? High RPM. You're going to get the car up into the high RPM band, and you're going to spend every gear high RPM. So you want to make sure that your power band is right up inside of the high RPM limit of where your engine's going to be operating. So we're not going to worry about trying to find out where to plot the compressor on a 2,000 RPM or 3,000, even 4,000 RPM for that matter. I'll do a comparison to a streetable car where you spend all of your time between 2,500 and 4,500 RPM afterwards. But for now, let's use the example where we spend all of our time in the high RPM range. We're going to start off at 5,000 RPM. And then after that, we'll do 6,000 or 5.5, 6,000, 6.5, 7, 7.5, 8, etc., etc. You'll get the gist of how the formula works in a few minutes. So once we take 0.55 multiplied by 121.9 multiplied by 0.9, here's a little bit of maths for you guys. 100% equals 1.0. 50% equals 0.5. 20% equals 0.2. Okay, yes, I know this is grade 5 or grade 4 maths. I just need to make sure that you guys are aware of this because this is what we're going to be using for the volumetric efficiency. So over here we'll be using 0.905 multiplied by 5,000 divided by 1728. So here's the formula. 0.55 times by 121.9 times by 0.906 times by 5,000 divided by 1728. Right, to the calculator. Let's have a look at what this is actually going to give us. So we're going to go 0.55 multiplied by 121.9 multiplied by 0.906 multiplied by 5,000 divided by 1728 gives us 175.76 CFM. Right. Now, what have we calculated here? We've calculated what this engine is capable of consuming. The volume of air, the quantity of air, the amount of air that this specific engine with this volumetric efficiency using this brake specific fuel consumption of this size at 5,000 RPM. That engine with those specs will consume 175.76 cubic feet per minute of air. Fact. Now, how does that relate to a compressor map? Either Borg, Garrett, or whatever compressor you're looking to reference. First of all, you need to understand that 90% of compressor maps are calculated on the x-axis in pounds per minute of airflow. So we need to convert CFM to pounds per minute. And how you do that is you divide it by 14.472, which will give you 170. I'm going to round this off. 176 divided by 14.472 will give you 12.16 pounds per minute of airflow. Great. Now we've got the first value that we need for the x-axis of our compressor map. Next, we need to understand that this is a normally aspirated engine. It doesn't come out turbocharged. We are going to turbocharge it. Now we need to work out, once we have put a said turbocharger on, what is the effect going to be on the cubic feet per minute or the volume of air that this engine is going to consume. And for that we have another formula. It's basic, don't worry, don't change the channel, just chill. We're going to have a boost factor. That is going to be atmospheric pressure plus your intended boost divided by atmospheric pressure. Let's assume we're at the coast. Let's assume we are at 14.7 at the coast, plus let's say we want to boost it's going to be a top end car. So we're going to boost 2 bar, all right? Let's just say, we're going to use a specific turbocharger and we want to boost 2 bar, which is quite high, and it's a front wheel drive and it's a car that we've built and we want to go and test it at that boost pressure. So we're going to go 14.7 times 2, my maths is atrocious, times 2, 29.4. 29.4 divided by 14.7 equals, I know the answer, but let's just do the math. 14.7 plus 29.4 divided by 14.7 will give you 3. Now, the next part is very easy. All you've got to do is you've got to take your pound per minute of airflow that the engine consumes, normally aspirated, times by 3. Will give you the first value that you need to then plot onto your compressor map. So 12.16 times 3 is 36.48. 36.48 pounds per minute of airflow. That's your first plot that you're going to use in your compressor map. So we're going to come to 2 different compressor maps. and we're going to basically use them in comparison. We're going to use a BorgWarner EFR 8474 Black Series, which is a 950 horsepower capable turbo, and we're going to use a GTX 3582R Gen 2, which is a 900 horsepower capable turbo in this specific catalog. If you have a different catalog, I think it's volume 7 or 6, it is a 950 horsepower capable turbo. So depending on your catalog and depending on what Garrett has produced in that specific catalog, you'll have a different value. Let's come to the BorgWarner EFR 8474 compressor map, and let's go and put our first plot. Let's understand the two axes first. You've got an x-axis over here and you have a y-axis coming from top to bottom. This is known as a P to C ratio. It's a pressure ratio between atmospheric and what you're going to be boosting, gauge pressure. Over here you have 1.0. Now that is a 1-to-1 ratio to atmospheric pressure, and let's assume we're at the coast. Remember the example that we've done all of our calculations on are assuming we're at the coast. So let's assume that's 1 bar of atmospheric pressure, not gauge pressure, atmospheric pressure, not absolute pressure. This is atmospheric pressure. The outside pressure that you're breathing in is 1 bar, 14.7 psi. If you double that, 2 times atmospheric pressure will give you 1 bar gauge pressure. That's 1 bar gauge pressure, which is equal to 2 times the atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure, 1 bar outside, you can measure walking down the road. So the engine will be off, gauge pressure will be 0. To get to 1 bar gauge pressure, you need to double the atmospheric pressure of 1 bar, which gives you a 2.0 pressure ratio. I've written it in here because there isn't a 2.0, it goes from 1.8 to 2.2, etc., as you can see. So in this specific example, we are running 2 bar gauge pressure, which is equal to 3 times atmospheric. So 1 bar doubled, 1 bar gauge pressure is 2.0 pressure ratio. 2 bar will be 3 pressure ratio, 2 bar gauge. Now that is our x-axis plot. This is our y-axis. We've now calculated where on our y-axis we want to basically start from. So I'm just going to mark that with a little red dot. Okay, we're boosting 2 bar. Now, if you have a look at the first calculation we did, we worked out that at 5,000 RPM, we would be consuming 36.48 pounds per minute of airflow. So there's 35. Okay, let's just 35 to 40. Let's just make a little line over there. That'll be 37.5. Let's just call it more or less. In the middle of that, we should see our 36.48 pounds per minute of airflow. So if we draw a line up, we should be operating more or less on that at that specific point at 2 bar gauge pressure with the 8474 Black Series. Now, we're on the surge limit, approximately between 104 and 95,000 RPM, and efficiency of 62%. Now, remember something, guys, this is a top-end car. You're going to be spending your time in the high RPM range. We are going to assume that this engine can rev to 8,000 RPM. So 5,000 RPM is irrelevant. 4,000, 3,000, 2,000 is irrelevant. You're going to go into launch off the line, you're going to get the car up into the high RPM range, and you're going to spend your life there. You shouldn't drop wheel spin dependent below 6,000 or maybe 5,800 RPM if you're revving to a red line of 8,000 RPM, and once again depending on gear ratios, etc., which brings us back to the board. Now, I've already gone and done the calculations, and if you use the same 121.92 cubic inch displacement multiplied by 90.5 or 0.905 volumetric efficiency multiplied by 0.55 brake specific fuel consumption multiplied by 6,000 RPM, you land up with a 43.72 pounds per minute of airflow after you multiply it by 3 with your boost factor. So 43.72, approximately there. If we draw a line straight up, we should be operating more or less in that area there. Let's do the same thing with 7,000 RPM. You'll get 51 pounds. So 52.5 will be approximately there. In the middle of that, if you draw a line up, you should be operating more or less there on the compressor map at 7,000 RPM. Let's do the last one on camera so you guys can see clearly what I've done. We're going to go 0.55 times by 121.9 times 0.905 times 8,000 RPM divided by 1728 gives you 280 CFM divided by 14.472 equals 19.4 pounds per minute times by your boost factor of 3 will give you 58.23. Let's leave it at 58 pounds per minute, which is approximately there. If you draw a line all the way up to the top, you will be operating on the compressor map at 2 bar gauge pressure, 3 times atmospheric, 58 pounds per minute of airflow. Now, that is more than good enough on a stock standard engine. Now, for every 10 pounds per minute of airflow, you can assume the engine will produce 100 horsepower, and that's conservative. Now remember something, this engine revving 8,000 RPM based on the volumetric efficiency of 90.5%, which is the OEM spec, OEM valves, OEM headwork, OEM intake manifold, etc., etc. You surely, if you are going to be building a top-end car, you will be modifying a lot of the parts of the engine, valves, valve train, headwork, etc., etc. You might even increase compression ratio, which will change your volumetric efficiency. But at the end of the day, you will be doing physical, mechanical modifications to the engine, obviously rods, pistons, etc., in order to be able to get the engine to flow more. In this specific guise, this engine should make 580 horsepower at 2 bar boost using this specific turbo. Now, let's have a look at this from 5,000 RPM. You started off at a 62% efficiency. You moved up to a 68, between 66 and 68, call it 67% efficiency at 6,000 RPM. 7,000 RPM, you moved up to probably a 71% efficiency. And then at 8,000 RPM, you moved up to 74% efficiency. So the higher you rev the engine, the further up in the efficiency range of the compressor you move. That is exactly what you want for a top-end car. Let's do the same exercise on a Garrett compressor map. I'm going to plot these plots for you, and I'm just going to bring the camera in to show you where they exist, and we can overlay the two to show you the difference between the EFR 8474 and the GTX 3582 Gen 2. Okay, so we back to the GTX 3582 Gen 2 compressor map at the same 3.0 pressure ratio or 2 bar boost pressure gauge across your x-axis here, or on your y-axis crossing over the x-axis, and then there's the 4 plots that we did at 5, 6, 7 and 8,000 RPM on the ABF standard engine with a 90.5 volumetric efficiency. The difference between this compressor map and the EFR is quite simply the fact that at 7,000 RPM you've already reached 74% efficiency, and as soon as you go to 8,000, you're now dropping to 73. So you've reached the peak efficiency of this compressor on the Garrett side of things before you've reached the peak efficiency on the BorgWarner. So you've reached the peak and you've already started to fall off. If you rev this engine to 9,000, you would have been down to 72, maybe even 71% efficiency. So you've maxed out the 3582 Gen 2 on this specific engine, specifically related to a 1 kilometer top end run where you spend all your RPM in the high RPM, all your time in the high RPM range. Okay guys, so that was a nice comparison and a quick brief outline into compressor maps and plots that you can do on your own for your specific engine. Hope you guys enjoyed that. It is an open-ended, once again, an open-ended video. It is a very broad topic. There are lots of things to take into account. Intercooler efficiencies, intercooler pressure drops, humidity, barometric pressure, air temperature, fuel, brake-specific fuel consumption, depending on which fuel you use, etc., etc. The reason I didn't want to go into all of those factors is because it's going to become so technical that 90% of you will be lost by the time we get a third of the way into the video. If there are any technical questions that you guys have, post them in the comment sections below. I hope you guys enjoyed that. And in closing, my best option for that specific application and most 2-liter engines that want to make big power and spend their time in the high RPM range, without a doubt, EFR 8474 Black Series. Hope you guys enjoyed that. See you next time.